What's up, guys? Kevin Wagstaff here. Another episode of Spector Spotlight with Andrew and Sarah Wilson from Wilson and Sons. This is a refreshing episode. I love it for new inspectors especially, and also experienced inspectors who want to get into social media. So as a new inspector, it's always hard to get your in with agents and get to know them, and especially during COVID. And they've used social media so well, better than almost any new inspectors I've seen because they're so authentic. And so I think everyone can learn from this. They're great people. They're fun. They're a great follow on social media as well. I'll link to everything in the descriptions, but I think everyone can take something from this. So hope you enjoy. Thanks.
We can do it. We're huge fans, by the way. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. I haven't done one of these. I haven't had an episode in a couple of weeks. So I was actually like hurting for someone to come on. And when Lorna mentioned you all, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I've seen their stuff on Instagram. I was like, they're super active on there. I was like, let's do it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So how's COVID life been? That's always my first question for everybody is what's the last year been like?
Oh, we actually started a couple of weeks, like our business before COVID, before shutdown.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Yeah.
Well, we got a couple of inspections in March, so I remember the first inspection I had with this new agent that we just kind of started hitting it off. After we finished and we're in the driveway, he's like, well, I guess I'm going to go do continuing education for the next few weeks. Okay. So yeah, that was a great time to start.
Yeah. What was it planned to, obviously not knowing what was ahead, but was it in the plans or was it kind of more spontaneous?
No. So we had a soft launch in like December where we got all of our licensing done and everything and just told our friends that are realtors and had a couple of like low key ones, no platform on social media or anything at that point. And then we decided to network early March, end of February. Yeah. Getting ready for the appropriate time. Launching a business timing is everything, right? So we're trying to like get out there for spring, and then everything shut down. And for literally 2 months, we were mandated not to do anything and stay in our home. And so real estate here paused for 2 months, which explains the huge social media pivot. We're just like, well, let's just start hitting up people via chat.
Yeah, started sending video messages and stuff like that.
What went through the minds at that time? Was it like, what was the dialogue like?
Oh, crap.
Yeah. Well, shit. Yep. That's
yes.
What do we do now?
Right.
What next?
Yeah. It was just okay. Well, we're very different. Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm an 8. So throw a pandemic at me, I'm like, let's do this. I'm ready, like extreme like ideas going on in my head. And he's a 5. So the investigator, so he's very much like, okay. Like, this is not according to plan. So I was like, well, let's do these 3 things. And I start shooting out ideas and you can speak for yourself. You reeled me in a bit. And we decided to just really lean into networking very intentionally on Instagram in particular. I hate social media, but I figured, well, this is the way to do it right now. So let's be super intentional about finding the right people to work with and prepare for when this ends, because it's going to end one day.
At some point,
yeah.
And we picked, we decided we're going to hone in really on one particular brand of social media because, with our family life and everything, having 2 kids and being real busy and a couple of jobs, it's like, okay, we don't have time to like spread ourselves out too far.
Yeah.
Let's focus on one, get really good at that. And that's where we focused our attention was Instagram. And then we just kind of went out from there.
Yeah.
Where did the instincts come from to do that? Like, what are your backgrounds? Kind of like, I'm guessing there's something in there that just helps you have that instinct.
Total amateur when it comes to media, but I'm really good relationally. Like I'm like good at connecting with people. So like one-to-one and like observing. So I guess learning is a really good strength for both of us. And so I had to learn how to do Instagram. And so just following local realtors and just seeing what they like getting to know them and chatting with them just as a woman, like, oh, that's really cute and stuff like that. But yeah, more just relationally, and then coming to them as like the wife of a home inspector, because yeah, just a novice and learning how to do it, how to engage, and just being transparent with them. Like, hey, I want to talk to you because I like your page. Like, how do you market yourself, and like, what are the reasons behind it, so I could implement that as a home inspector business. Because I would follow other home inspectors, and there's very few that I thought were really cool to follow. Again, I'm not a home inspector, and I don't like pictures of toilets. Like, I just don't think it's fun to look at. So I'm like, what's scroll worthy to stop somebody and get their attention, but from this position, like this service? Yeah. So I just had really like transparent conversations with really helpful realtors that taught me a ton, and just put it from our line of work.
I love this, because just from, I think from the first time I saw posts from you all and your company and the stories, I had assumed, I was like, oh, they've probably been in the business 5-10 years, you know, like have been doing this for a while, because it just looks so confident and put together. And so it's really cool to hear that you just said, all right, I'm going to learn to do this well. And I noticed you said you asked questions. Home inspectors are notoriously bad at that, because they usually just want to tell you about, you know, their construction experience or building codes or whatever. Right. So I love that you do that. And I'm guessing the results have been great in terms of saying like, oh, I just like you. I just like y'all. So
I'm like, I would just be very transparent with them. I just like your page. And I think after talking with you, I like you as a person. And I know, here's my analogy with home inspectors. And this is like what you said, like the biggest struggle coming from, it's like a very interesting line of work where we love what we do. Like, home inspectors love nerding out on this, but like no one else likes it. Like, like
that's the truth.
It is very interesting. It's very extremely important. But like, I don't know if you saw, we have a video called The Analogy, where it's like, here's what a home inspector is. It's like when you date someone and we're that friends where it's like, can you please just let me know all the things about him or her that are just like not good, that I should really take a look at. And so the home inspector is that friend that like, you don't know where that person is in their heart with the process, like of dating this person. Like, you know, the person might want to buy the house and might just be checking it out, and either come in with a hatchet or like a nice scalpel and then break the news because there's going to be something with the house, at least like one thing, right? Yeah. So we're that friend.
I love this. I want to get back to the Instagram stuff. Andrew, what is what's your background? Is it typical construction, building, trades?
I have a pretty interesting background. So prior to becoming a home inspector, I was a musician. That was my career. Right out of high school, that's what I did. Playing guitar, playing in bands, teaching as kind of a local gun for hire. And my inspection experience came from my dad, who still is a home inspector. And during the summers, I would go out with him for making a little extra cash when lessons were down. And when I started doing that, I found out I really enjoyed it. And I kept doing that for 13, 14, 15 years seasonally, and started out writing reports for him. Because, you know, he does the old school handwritten field notes.
Physically writing reports. Yeah, literally writing a report. Yeah.
And so I would transcribe the handwritten notes into his report writing. And then I started going out in the field with him, you know, and you've heard it before, go out, test windows and doors and outlets and things of that nature, and then start doing more and more. And finally decided, you know, it's time to just go ahead and get my license and start doing this thing. So then made the switch from full-time musician, part-time inspector to now full-time inspector. So that's the nutshell.
Yeah.
How
totally
cool.
Different.
Yeah, I'm amazed. And I've actually found, believe it or not, that I guess diversity of background or experience is such an advantage. Like, I don't know if initially you felt like, it's, you know, imposter syndrome or whatever, but I've just talked to so many inspectors that came from communications or teaching or whatever. And that just helps them relate to people better. People find it interesting.
Totally.
And it's just out of the norm, which I love. I think that we should embrace that. And it sounds like you guys you've leaned into it, of just being like, hey, we are who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great icebreaker, when when you meet an agent or a contractor, it's like, oh, so what'd you do before this? I was a musician. Like, really?
Yeah,
So
people love that.
yeah.
And people really like, one of the things that, like, bringing it back to social media, like one of the things I find people really crave on there is like vulnerability and just being honest, like, hey, I'm a total amateur when it comes to this. So, and I just coming from that place of learning and observing and then sharing who we are, just as plainly as we possible can, while being helpful with what we know, for people looking for homes or new homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely. And playing to the strengths that we bring to the industry from kind of a different perspective.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the education part of it. So.
Yeah.
Touch on the
post what we learn about things.
Touch on the authenticity piece, because that to me is it's a rarity in this industry, and I think like 98% of people on social media can't get there. They can't break through that. How was that so easy for y'all? Because I could just tell it was just seems natural, but maybe it's the whole overnight success thing that took a year to get to.
Well, it's certainly more natural for Sarah than it is for me. Because you speak about the imposter syndrome, and certainly having that big time.
Everybody has that.
I think so. I think it's pretty normal. But Sarah has definitely been helpful in that part of my growth, but also kind of in what she does with social media, with our presence there. So it's definitely a virtue that I'm aspiring to grow in.
Yeah, I'm trying to find words that make this sound not kind of, I'm super direct.
She's very direct.
I care what people think, but not enough to like let it just like hinder what I think of myself.
Right.
So I don't care what people think ultimately. So I'm free to just post and say what I will. And like, I feel like here's this thing to help you. You're welcome. And so that's where it comes from. Like, like what's lacking on here and what can we deliver? Like, what are like a lot of the questions we get from our clients, and let's use that as content. Like, what's the point of using a realtor? We get a lot of people who don't have representation calling us for inspections. It's like, how are you doing this by yourself? You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing that? Because they don't know a buyer's agent they're not going to pay for. And so we're like, let's just make a video 4 reasons why you should use a buyer's agent, you know what I mean? Or a seller's agent and stuff like that. Like very simple, very basic, because while home inspectors or whatever people's niches are know a ton about what they know, Joe Schmo doesn't know like maybe a percentage. And so you got to break it down. Yeah.
And tell me if this is how you view it, because I always teach inspectors this when we do like marketing classes, or I've done webinars, and I always tell them to kind of look around the world around you for content, because it's everywhere. Everything can become content. Google tells you what people search for. You seem like you do that well. Just looking at some of your stories, I was poking around for a few minutes, and if another business does something really well, you're like, oh, look at this. This is
right.
That's just content everywhere. Is that how you view it? Of just like our world is our content?
Yeah, definitely. Like talking to people, like having a conversation. You will get so much content just having a conversation about what we do in particular. People have like no clue. It's like, this is like a month, and then taking from what attracted me to other agents. Like I like agents that I'm learning a lot about real estate. And so I'm going to emulate what they do on my site or platform, because I mean, that's what drew me to them. They're teachers. And so I want to be like, our approach is teaching and offering solutions and just serving people in that way. And so that's, how we face it. Like, yeah.
So has Instagram been the biggest, I guess, channel for meeting new agents?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And
right.
Yeah. And we started out in the summertime, springtime, of last year, doing more interaction there, and
getting coffee meetings out of it.
Yeah.
And jobs.
Yeah.
So it definitely has been the biggest platform for getting out there for us. We've had a little bit from other areas as well, but Instagram certainly has been the biggest one.
Yeah, it's a good tool. You should just really intentional with it, because you get to meet the realtor before even saying hello to them, to see if you even want to work with them. Like you just get a really good beat on someone. Or at least the image they're putting out, which it says a lot. And so we'll see some people, I'm like, this person looks hilarious. Let's reach out to them. And yeah. So what I've learned is engaging with them and commenting and messaging with them before you send the video is like make or break. Because if you just send the video right out, 99% of the time, they're not gonna, like, we've had one person positively respond to a hot video, just like, hello. Yeah, engaging with them and then introducing yourself.
Oh, I love that. Because I always tell inspectors, treat it like real life. You wouldn't just go up to someone and just like spill all these intimate details or just ask them to buy something from you before introducing yourself or being like, hey, that's a nice shirt. Hey, how's the weather? You gotta like warm it up a little on social. And so I think that's the thought, is that it's just easier on social and that you can just shortcut it. And I think you all are seeing like there's no shortcuts, right?
No.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, that's part of the problem with thinking of it though that way, because social media have kind of like altered people's thinking on connection. And I think, like, for sure it's delayed it. That veteran home inspector you met at continuing ed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he said that before. It was how many faces to faces before you actually clicked?
So what was it? It was 24 touches. I think is what it is now. It was like 12 touches, to be able to make contact with somebody so that they know who you are. And now with the way social media is and the attention span and everything, now those points of contact have doubled from 12 to about 24.
No kidding. So they got watered down. They get watered down because of the volume, velocity, and now we're all online. So now
and it's hard to decipher who's like for real, who's actually like going to be a partner or a paying customer.
True.
So just like really intentionally engaging with the right people and like taking the time to learn who the right people are, because everybody on social media is talk, but then who is going to then see it through, and you have to engage with people in that way.
So what percent would you say you are engaging with others versus kind of posting your own or promotional? Is it a lot of
I'm way more engagement.
Like a lot of outbound, I guess, or offense, maybe you could call it, or outbound.
Are you like, how am I engaging more than I am posting? Is your question? Yeah. Oh, I engage like all the time. Perfect. And I post, I feel like almost never. I know I do post, but it feels like I hardly do because I'm too busy talking to people.
Yeah, and the engagement, she's so good about this, is that the engagement is not just hitting the heart button. It's going further than that. It's commenting. It's kind of creating some sort of conversational back and forth.
Yeah, I get a lot of private messages.
Yeah, a lot of private messaging, things like that, as opposed to just kind of scrolling through and doing the, robotic like.
That's the lazy way to do it. That yields nothing, right? Likes are
cheap, like what's the point?
Likes are very cheap.
Yeah.
And tell me, this is part of the problem. A lot of people want to outsource this kind of stuff. I believe it's impossible to outsource it because you're in the business, right? You live it, you breathe it. You could tell that. I think just from even the few minutes of research I did. So it's tough for people to prioritize this, I think, because a lot of times it's one inspector. But if they have a partner or a spouse, I think this is a no-brainer.
Totally utilize it.
Yeah.
Like if you got a spouse, like honestly, like again, we're a partnership. So the better he does, the more food we have to eat and the more like, what I mean? All the things,
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you have a partner, he's busy. I want him executing on the coffee dates and doing the home inspections. Like he doesn't have time. And honestly, Andrew, you don't even think about taking pictures, right?
Yeah, it's very tough. She's like, hey, give me a picture, while you're there. It's something I can use on social media.
Like a lake or something pretty, nothing like weird.
And like, it's like a lot of times I won't remember. Like it'll be at the end of the inspection. I'm starting to pull out of the driveway. I'm like, I forgot to get a picture for her to use. I try to find something real quick.
It's intentional. Yeah, it takes intentionality, and I think it's building a muscle is what I think you got to build that muscle up.
And one thing I would say, if you do take your spouse on, which you absolutely should, partner up, you know what I mean? Like, so, but one of the things I learned is people want to see Andrew and who he is. So he took this picture once that was just awful. It looked borderline creepy. Like he had a thing in his hand, like a big long wrench and a mask on. He looked weird.
Oh, it was me coming out of a crawl space.
I was like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, I'm not posting that. And it did so well. People loved it because they saw him and that he's funny and,
Yeah.
I thought it was weird and people ate it up.
Yeah. I think my favorite one was the secret window.
Oh yeah. But I write in the caption, like, this is what he gives me to work with people. I'm sorry. He can't take a serious photo. And like, I explain that.
Yeah.
Can you all send me links to everything we're talking about, and I'll put it in the description so people can like
Yeah.
click on these and look at them afterwards?
Yeah, sure.
I'll make notes of this stuff, and I'll obviously link to your account so people can see. I think the full of personality way to do this if they're going to do it. Not many will, and so luckily you won't have much competition. So the beauty is, 5 people out of 1,000 will do this.
But that's another problem. You have to be teachable. You know how this is why I love your podcast, because we execute on what we hear about it. Like, let's try it and see if it works for us, because everywhere is different in the United States, but we'll try it because we're in our first year. And I mean, if you're not going to learn, even if we're in our 10th year, you have to be teachable and just like grow and learn, because that's how you stay in the game.
It's shifting fast too. The game,
right.
I mean, just this last year, it's probably shifting even faster than I realize. And I'm in it every day and I am seeing it. But like what you're doing is exactly the spot to be, I think. I don't think there's any better place to be than social, email communications, Zooms, all of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for touching on that. That was like the one thing I wanted to make sure to talk about was the Instagram presence. But we'll link to it and shout it out. It's at WS Inspects.
Yeah, at WS Inspect.
Inspect.
Yeah. Inspect. WS Inspect. Cool.
Yeah.
What else is interesting to y'all coming into year 2? Like what? Not even just home inspections. I saw you mentioned we could talk about anything. I love it. This podcast doesn't just have to be about home inspections either. I'm like, I listen to other podcasts sometimes and they just go off on tangents and they're just like, yeah, if it sucks, we won't do it again, but we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you all have a podcast? I thought I saw that because I saw the story. It said like, we're on the other side of the table now. Tell me about your podcast.
Dude, we're ever changing.
Oh yeah. It's a journey, our podcast.
It happened with COVID.
Yeah.
We're like, well, what do we do? How do we get people to know us? Because everybody's freaked out. And, so we just made a podcast to have conversations and just hit record and try to, what we learned is people don't like contractors, or they think home inspectors are weird and like deal breakers. And we're like, well, how do we have a conversation about how we love what we do and then get people to like kind of change their minds about that viewpoint, like educate them on how, like, who we are. And so the first season we focused on having contractors on the podcast, like as human beings, like our friends that are in the field or people that we've used and liked. Cause we refer, workers, like if we find things and we're like, here's a good guy that we like. And, so yeah, that was season 1.
Yeah. And that was kind of there's a selfishness to having a podcast, to where it's like, okay, this gives me the opportunity to meet contractors myself and to kind of interview them. Okay, is this somebody that I want to refer?
And we were thinking like one person would listen to it.
Yeah.
But realtors really like it because we have it's a small following, but a nice, small, consistent following, because they're learning who to use and like who they would want to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was this just brain? So let's pause there and say, okay, you just said, hey, let's start a podcast. This is what I love about you two, is that you just say it like, yeah, we're going to do it, and said, screw it, we did it. Did you Google how to do it? A lot of people ask, a lot of people email me like, hey, what do you use? How do you do it? And I'm like, just Google it.
I'm point, fire, aim. He's the one who does all the research. That's your question.
Yeah. As much as I wanted to try to do all the research, I was like, we don't really. If I try to do all the research, we're never going to do it. So we just did it. We
downloaded an app.
Downloaded an app so we can record. Yeah, just picked one.
Yeah.
And we just went for it. And it's like, well, let's just kind of figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
Bare bones.
Yeah, very bare bones.
I want to zero in on that though, because that's it. And you've had success with it, and it's amazing. And you just took action. Because Andrew, I'm like you. I take 10 minutes minimum to pick out toothpaste in that aisle. I'll sit there and read. I'm the worst. But then I'll just do something drastic, a much bigger purchase quickly. But it takes so much time to buy deodorant. It's ridiculous. But you just said taking the action is more important, right? Getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really where Sarah came in. Kind of that plays to her strengths. And that's where we kind of balance each other out.
Yeah, so well, thank God.
So yeah, she'll kind of push me to do things. I'll rein her in a little bit, and we're finding that balance. But that really came into play when we started, just doing a podcast, just out of nowhere.
You literally have nothing to lose to try it, and that's how you learn. Like, we learn by doing. Like, I learned so much from our kids because they learn by doing things all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and how do you, as you get older, you learn by teaching, right? And it like reiterates. And so I'm like, well, let's do a podcast and get ourselves out there. And if no one listens to it, then we talked. Like, we had a conversation and we hit record. There's zero to lose.
Zero downside.
Something along the way.
Yeah. And if you don't like it, we'll delete it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. One, because my wife is kind of the action-oriented person. She'll just tell me, like, just buy the freaking chair already or whatever.
Yeah.
But for inspectors out there that don't have a Sarah or don't have that, I guess, influence in their life, you kind of have to create it. So say, for those out there listening or watching, if it's just you got to have that person on your shoulder that just says, just start and figure it out. Like, that's what I try to tell everyone. And if nothing else, the community and podcasts push you to just try things, because getting on video, we all probably hate our noses and faces or voices or whatever, but you just got to hit play, right?
Oh, it's awkward as anything. Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, just do it. And as Sarah said, if you don't have that, that other person, kind of pushing you to do it. Yeah. Going out and being intentional about finding a mentor to kind of help. I know I'm a part of InterNACHI, and they have a mentor program, and I found a mentor on there.
Oh, okay.
Even though Sarah and I have this dynamic here, having somebody to push me in more specific ways in the industry, that's been incredibly helpful.
And he's fantastic.
I mean, taking advantage of people who are very eager to pour back into the industry that they've gotten so much out of, that's been huge.
So you have gotten value out of that, because part of me, I used to hang out in the forums, and part of me was like, oh my gosh, some of these guys, they're doing like one inspection a month and they trash anything new. So I'm guessing you found a good one that actually had good experience to kind of.
Oh yeah, definitely. The forums can be brutal. There's helpful content there, to be sure, but it can be an interesting playground. But going through the mentors and just kind of going down the list and seeing people in my state, and picked one, and called him up. We met in person. We were close enough at one point to do that, and that's been he's been kind of the go-to for learning things in the industry, and specifically here in North Carolina, since we share a state,
right?
And he knows all the ins and outs of it. And so definitely found a big value in that. And of course, that's where I got my state mandated continuing education already for the year, is going up to his place in Raleigh. So nice. Shout out to 5 Senses Training. Trees. So
So they just link you up. So that's just like, how formal is the program? I'm just curious how they structure this, because that's
it's very informal. You just go there, and you can there's a list of participating people, he was really the first guy I contacted. So I think some guys maybe do things a little bit different on their end, but it's just they're enrolled in the program with InterNACHI, and then you just contact them and you go from there. I mean, that's really it. It's pretty informal, pretty laid back.
Yeah, we spent like a day for Christmas with him and his kids.
Yeah,
just got together with them just to hang.
That's awesome.
It was cool. Yeah,
I appreciate anyone in the industry that feels like, hey, there's enough for everyone to eat. I don't mind, training the whole training your competition thing. That just shows confidence to be able to put back into the next generation.
Right.
Yeah, and we even have a group of us. We've got a chat group that we're all a part of, and most of us are here in North Carolina. I think there's one that's in another state, but we're all in the same state. We're all pretty much in different markets, but that's really cool that we were all able to kind of find this same mentor, and then we all just kind of help each other out, and that's been really cool to be connected with other inspectors that way too.
Do you use Slack or like Discord or GroupMe or something?
We're using Signal.
Signal, sweet. Yeah, I've heard of so many. Yeah, and there's so many cool apps to just have like these close, tight knit groups and connect with people. Hopefully, more inspectors take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like what you said about it not being, or like pouring into the next generation, because there is so much out there. Like we don't need to compete with one another, because I don't want to work with every like real estate agent. Like they're just not my people, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just I'm not going to get along with them, and vice versa. And so I feel like there's so many different of our personalities that there's plenty to go around.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like let's make each other better and support one another, because that's how we do better, and that's how kind of like the reputation changes that we have as like our industry, you know what I mean? So,
and I just feel like it puts out good energy. I'm just a big, like, I'm not like a complete foo-foo energy person, but I'm like, hey, if you put those good vibes out there, people feel it, people are attracted to you, and naturally you're going to grow from it.
Right.
I've seen enough evidence of that to say, okay, that's a very real dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, let's, so the podcast season 1, you talk to contractors. Is it going to be agents next, or home buyers, or kind of
where agents? I'm looking to line up a few. We just started doing like we rank the people on Instagram, like, hey, tell us what you want for next season, and they pick. So we did a little mini DIY season. So we're doing it by the quarter. So each quarter is a new topic.
That's so fun.
And so people wanted to hear about our values and like what we're intentional about. So we talked about, well, if you want to do well, we had a series on intentionality, like
that was season 2.
Season 2. And now we're on values, on who we are and how it looks for our life and business. And so we're just talking about things we learn being home inspectors, and how we're going to take each like good experience and bad experience to make it better for the next time. And then how we so the season 3 or whatever we're on are like about how we figure it all out. And then next one, we're having real estate agents and like what they do.
Oh, I love this. I love this for so many reasons, but you mentioned this a minute ago. I just want to reiterate this for everyone. Whether you do this on YouTube or a podcast or to someone else, I think just vocalizing these kinds of things makes us all better business people. Because it like reaffirms it in your brain that like, okay, this is what I stand for. So then you're more likely to follow through on things with agents or clients, or waking up that day to get on Instagram. I just don't think it happens enough with inspectors.
Right. But that's how you grow. Like for each experience, like even the not so great ones that stress us out, we'll share it, because transparency is super important. And I'm super like, where I come in, really like customer service to me is super important. And so I want to give everything that I would want when buying a house that, that I didn't get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and so just sharing that, and like, how can we make this better for next time? Like, how can the turnaround time on this test be way faster? Or what can we do to help? You can't light incense and play Kenny G when you break down the rundown. You know what I mean? Like, that's just weird. So like, here's a local coffee shop gift card. It's not much, but go sit down, have a cup, chill, look over the report, and then, just make it laid back, because it's not a great time. It's just not.
Shout out to Kenny G. I grew up with my parents playing that in the house. Love that. You should that's content right there. The memeable content with Kenny G and incense. What's interesting to you guys? I know like what that could be hurdles that you're about to face this next year, or you mentioned just the environment of what's going on out in the world.
Yeah. We coming into a new year for us, we're wrapping up year 1. So much that we learned. We're looking forward to 2021 and kind of what's going to happen now that we've got springtime and summer coming up. This is, I think, where we're going to see the fruits of our labor, of what we've done kind of in off season. But what that labor entails, such as the marketing, that's been a huge challenge, and it's been a huge learning experience. And so for us, just trying to figure out the best ways for us to grow in terms of marketing, but also to grow relationally with our immediate community, and really get our name out there as inspectors. And that's been interesting. That's been a fun challenge. It's been good. And I think a lot of that from, we've gotten a lot of help from what Sarah's done online. And that's given us like a really great starting point for conversation with people. So we're certainly looking forward to kind of the next year as marketers.
Yeah.
And that's been crazy because I'm not one to talk about myself a whole lot. And learning how to be a marketer, not just a home inspector. That's been a huge eye opener. And I can't remember, it was probably your podcast that I heard about it. It's like, you're from some of the other inspectors, think about yourself as a marketing person first. Because if you can't market yourself, all the home inspection knowledge in the world that you have is going to be for nothing. So just trying to have a different outlook on kind of who I am as Andrew of Wilson and Sons Inspection and Testing. And to just say I'm an inspector, that kind of pigeonholes me a little bit.
So makes you very like everybody else.
Yeah.
And the good thing about social media is you get to find out common ground with you and whoever you're talking to. You know what I mean? And that's a good starting point.
That's interesting. So say more about that. Do you mean other types of posts where it's just like an agent sees, oh, your kid plays soccer, so does mine, or something like that?
Yeah, because a lot of agents post that's their page. It's not like a personal one and a business one. It's like
both.
That's their life.
Yeah.
And so, finding like our kids are the same age or like something that they do that you genuinely like. Don't be fake because they'll see right through it. But like finding people that you genuinely want to talk to and find interesting, and then you have so much to talk about because there's a lot of commonalities. Like we love reading, and so finding agents that love reading and love teaching, and like that's how, despite what we do, we run it the same. Like we perform and approach work and life the same way. And so, I mean, Jesus, you have so much in common at that point. And it's just very natural.
I love that reframing and thinking of it as what is interesting to you and putting that out there. And I think it also plays into what you said a minute ago, not caring what other people think, because it's not about what they think. It's about what's interesting to you as a human. And then finding common ground, because how is someone going to fully know you and like you if you're not putting anything out there? But like you said, besides pictures of toilets, so it's like, okay.
Yeah. No one wants to see that. Just don't do that at all. Just don't.
I love it. That's such good advice. Cause I agree. I occasionally will go through and follow other accounts and I go to the page. And if it's just all attics and crawl spaces, it's not that interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and home inspectors are such a great resource for anybody, like homeowners, buyers, sellers, like, because they know so much about like the meat of the home. Mm-hmm. But if you deliver it well and in a very like palatable approach, then people are going to feast off of it. Like we get so many messages because people don't want to talk about it openly, because it's like, I don't know this, it's a little embarrassing. Like people like, until they'll message us, and you just have to know 10% more than anybody out there. And home inspectors know way more than 10%. So if you just know 10% more, you're good. Mm-hmm. Just don't shove it down their throat. Like just piecemeal it and be you and deliver it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But just being yourself as opposed to,
the weird professor who wants to show you weird pictures.
Yeah. Instead of that, that's what I really like about the approach that Sarah took, because I think, I tried to do the social media for us, and that was a disaster.
I deleted a lot. You can't go back and see it. I was like, no.
It was the stereotypical thing that I swore I wouldn't do. It was posting like,
memes.
The funny defect I saw in these memes that were so esoteric, nobody except inspectors got it. And so, it fell into that. And so having Sarah, who has, who is not an inspector and doesn't come from that, that's really helped, because then I can give her, it's kind of the visual content, and then she'll reshape it and reframe it to be able to speak to our demographic.
Right.
And running it through that filter, it has been so key.
Yeah.
And that helps build the trust, because this is a people business. And when you're able to kind of show your humanness and kind of what's going on, on a more personal side, then there's a little bit of repertoire or a rapport that's built up with you and your viewers as they start to, there's a little bit of trust that's built up there, and a little bit more of a, when there's more of that personal approach to it. So that's been key.
Yeah.
I love that you tried. And there's so many inspectors out there
I
that probably
tried.
they're nodding their heads. They're like, oh man, I hear you. It feels terrible. And so some inspectors, I say, maybe it's not right for you to try right now. Like if it's just you and you
Yeah.
don't have
Mhm.
time and you're kind of like not even half-assing it, like 1/8 assing it, like
Don't
maybe
do
just
it.
set it down for a while and then try to meet agents face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question for you. What's something you would have done more of in your first year if you had to do it again, and something you do less of?
Something I would have done more of is getting in front of more agents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I perceived as being enough, enough office visits, enough cold emails or phone calls wasn't nearly enough. I mean, I would have upped that by 10x or more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the new plan here. So reshaping that's something I would have done more of.
For sure.
A lot more face-to-face networking, or video to video, eyeball to eyeball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as much as you could now or in the last.
Yeah. What I would have done less of, I would have done. This is going to sound funny, but I would have done less studying.
Oh God, yeah.
I overdo it when it comes to the reading, and that's just who I like. I want to know everything before I get to a particular.
He read that entire textbook before his first day in class when he was getting his license.
Yeah, going through and
library books.
Sounds right. Sounds about right.
So I would have spent less time on the reading. I would have done what I needed to study and prepare and just kind of get the knowledge. But I don't remember half of all the reading that I did. Where it really comes into play is in the field. That's where the learning sticks and the retention happens. So I would have done less prep work and more action.
I mean, doctors do that. Doctors and surgeons, they read as they go.
Yeah, they
can do it and get away with it. I mean, God, we can do it.
They're referencing. My wife's a nurse practitioner, so they're referencing things much more than anyone ever realizes, because it's impossible to memorize all that, just like it's impossible to memorize every component of a home and how it works.
Yeah. And the best doctor is going to be transparent and say, hey, I read this morning on your condition and here's what I got. And we're like, okay, let's see that.
That's such good advice. And thank you for sharing that, because I think every new inspector needs to hear that, because we talk to inspectors that seem like they're spending 10 hours a day tweaking their template and dragging this here and there instead of going out and getting business. And it's like, you won't have a template or a business to worry about if you don't go out and meet people.
Right.
But I think inspectors, that's where they live, right? It's the comfort zone. So I kind of get it to a degree where it's like, hey, you live in the technical.
And you've got to get uncomfortable because you're now the product. Like you as the home inspector, your mind and your skill and who you are, your personality is the product. And you've got to show people that.
Ooh, that might be the name of this episode.
You're welcome. You are the product. I tell him that all the time when he he needs encouragement. I feel like he's Rocky and I'm like the little trainer that like really gets fired up.
Giving him the brisk iced tea.
You can use that image. But like it really is hard even for me. And like I'm very confident and it's very awkward. Like every time we are in front of a video doing anything, it's just so uncomfortable. But you can tell when you watch it. I'm like, oh, I look so comfortable. I'm like, I'm not. Right. But you just do it anyway, because that's how you learn, because you get to evaluate, you get feedback. Like when he's like, he's going to go more open houses. And so the relationships that we built and building relationships with the real estate agents, because you like them, what we drew to them, legit check in on them and be in relationship with them, like be part of community. And so Andrew you called Brian this morning, and P Realtor. And
Realtor.
And he was like giving Andrew tips and like encouraging him, because it's awkward for realtors to cold call too. Like there's relatability between the fields. Like what realtor truly enjoys calling?
Right. No.
I've not met one, but that's how they make their money. That's how they get out there and stay out there. And so we have to do it too. And so like calling them and getting encouragement and getting that pep talk and giving that pep talk, it's how you build a relationship and how you stay in their mind.
Yeah. Because you're growing this thing together, right? If you say we're on parallel tracks, growing our businesses, let's help each other. That's so comforting. And as an ex-agent, that would make me like, all right, we're together in this. Like you're my partner.
Right. Yeah.
No, you guys sound like you've nailed this, and you're going to continue to nail this. This is great. And I feel like it's like you said, you're going to see the fruits of your labor because you've been doing it all online. And now if you two, if we were getting coffee together, I'd be like, oh my God, I love you guys. I'm just going to use you. I don't even care what your technical backgrounds are or whatever, like that's how agents think. As much as everyone admitted, a lot of agents are just like, do I like you and trust you?
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's the word that I got even just this morning, talking with one of my newest agent friends. And we were just going to have a real conversation. And that's something he said to me, which I thought was very uplifting and encouraging. And to hear it straight from, a very talented agent, that meant the world to me as a home inspector. But yeah, just having, establishing that relationship has been very, very important.
Yeah, how you talk to yourself is important, because I think that's where a lot of insecurities come from. Like, I think people need to learn. Sorry, we're going to talk psychology for a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Like how to speak kindly and positively to yourself, because that's where it comes from. You know what I mean? Like, you will have like people lined up to talk to you if you know what you have. So like speaking to yourself well and not tearing yourself down. You have to be super intentional and change your mindset. But like, if you keep putting yourself down, you're not going to go out there and you'll be super awkward. But knowing that you can deliver a good home inspection and that you're fired up about it, people will take passion over experience. That is what we've learned, because we're in year one, but we're so fired up about it that we get jobs because we're passionate about it. And he's good at it. So thank God we can deliver. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like, so that's how it gets the momentum. But you have to build yourself up and surround yourself with people who are building you up, and run from the people who aren't, because they're not helping you. So yeah, you gotta have to just restructure your life that way.
That is wisdom right there. And I had my wife and had me and my daughter both read this book called You Are a Badass. And because my wife read it, it said it changed her life. And it talks a lot about the stories we tell ourselves. And I think a lot of inspectors, and the more you say it or the more you think it, you're just reaffirming it. And then it's like, okay, I'm not a marketer. I'm not good with people. I'm not good with people. I'm not good with people. Okay, you're just making that more so, as opposed to saying, you know what? I am good with people. I can be good with people. I'm just going to try it. I'm going to keep trying. Yeah. So completely agree.
Yeah, you have to do it. You can't get good with people not being with people.
Yeah. And surrounding yourself with the right community is hard, because this is isolating industry, but it sounds like, Andrew, you've done good finding, certain inspectors to kind of have private chats with. There's already people I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I got to hook you guys up with so-and-so, this power couple that's doing, so-and-so. So it finds you, it ends up finding you one way or another.
Yeah, you got to put it out there. Like you said, putting out the energy, and it draws that energy to you. So what you put out comes back in.
Yeah.
100%.
I got a question for y'all. Since you mentioned referrals to contractors, it's super interesting. It's obviously like a occasionally hot button topic in our industry, of people saying like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Some people say, oh, you should. And some people saying, yeah, you should get referrals or you should get like lead fees because you're literally providing work for this plumber. Was that just a natural progression for you guys of like, hey, people keep asking us, do we know a good plumber? And it's just like, yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. Here's his name.
Yeah, it seemed like a no-brainer because it's the field we're in.
Yeah.
And as homeowners, if we have somebody we really like, of course we're going to recommend them.
Yeah.
With growing up under the tutelage of my dad and the way he did home inspection, he was a home builder and a general contractor prior to that. And so, his best friends were contractors and real estate agents. And so it was very, very natural on his end for that. And it made sense to, let's build up our referral base of contractors. We don't get any fees or, anything like any kickbacks whatsoever from the people we refer. These are people that legitimately either we have used or we have gotten to know them well enough that we know the quality of their work and their character. And, and we offer that. We don't push any of our referrals on anybody else. We don't get in the way of the real estate agent if they have their people that they know and trust, if they haven't used the people that we use. So we do kind of balance that. We try to be careful with that, just not to get in the way of any other relationships there. But yeah, I mean, we build up that list of vendors that we like to refer, because inevitably as home inspectors, we're going to get that question. It's like, well, who would you recommend? And if we have somebody, we tell them. If not, we say, so your agent, Sally, she's a good agent. I'm sure she has somebody to be able to help you out. And if she doesn't, then Sally's going to come to us and say, hey, who's your guy?
Yeah.
So we try to play that carefully and wisely. But yeah, we do have our referrals that we use.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect way to handle it. I think our industry is so liability conscious that it just scares them from providing what the customers need and are asking for. It always kind of bugged me where I'm like, the fear is greater than the reality in most cases.
Right. And at the end of the day, the client is going to use who they want to use, not who. No one's forced to do anything. So if you know somebody, just refer them.
In the day and age we live in, honestly, clients kind of know if you recommend someone. It's not like you're literally signing off on their work and saying that they've never done anything bad in their life. No one thinks that. It's just it's just a referral.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
here's who I recommend.
Something that you said on one of your previous episodes is that, there are those inspectors that, you can't be so afraid of liability that you're no longer useful to me.
So true.
And I thought that was a great nugget that you shared in that episode. But yeah, it's absolutely true. And I didn't even think about that, when it came to referring contractors. Mm-hmm. That really wasn't something that crossed my mind. And I'm glad it wasn't.
It just seems natural.
An observation, though, is the difference of you all build so much trust through communication that it almost can go unsaid because people kind of just get the dynamic and people just kind of implicitly trust you because of how you treat them. And then liability is not an issue then. It's the ones that I think don't communicate, don't build trust, that worry about liability because they're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't talk to the customer or the agent. I don't know how they're going to take this.
Yeah. Not communicating is not kind. Like you have to like over communicate to get your point across. Otherwise you're just kind of withholding and then you're not trustworthy and people aren't going to want to work with you.
And that's the comfort zone I think most inspectors have to get out of if they don't have a Sarah on the team. But it's like, hey, your first hire needs to be a communicator, needs to be someone that offsets you, as the technician. I mean, that's just a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
We got about 10 minutes left. What else do you guys want to talk about? Could be anything.
I find Entree Leadership a great podcast to listen to. Or like an Insta follow because they are very like maverick or renegades when it comes to business. And so if people are in their comfort zone, having somebody like kind of like fire you up.
What's it called?
Entree Leadership. ENTREE. I could send it to you.
Yeah, I'll put that in the description. Awesome.
Yeah, Daniel Cardy heads that up.
Yeah. And like I'm not a natural entrepreneur.
I am.
That's all Sarah. Mm-hmm. I was a freelancer my whole life, which is not the same thing.
Right.
So the Entree Leadership has been very helpful for me and for her. So we've really enjoyed that, and I've enjoyed the growth and kind of learning the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody who owns their job.
Yeah, it's Dave Ramsey owns. It's one of his offshoots.
Oh, nice.
It's part of Ramsey Solutions. Yeah. And so regardless of where people stand on, it's not really how you run your money. It's just how you run yourself and, deliver yourself, because again, you're the product or the product is the product. And so it teaches you, like, no matter what you do, how to ship it well. And so shipping Andrew and the products that we do and how we do it and just being redundant. We feel redundant, but it's new to people. Like no one's on our page, like feasting off of it for hours. You know what I mean? So even if it feels like you're recording the same thing, which we have, it's new to like half the people on there. We get new followers all the time. And a lot of people, like, if I study people long enough, I'll actually like not follow them or have them unfollow me, because I'm not trying to gain followers. I'm trying to gain people who are in my market and engaged. So I don't care it's really not about the number of followers. It's about the people who you're engaging with. And so like, also don't get hung up on that. Cause it really means nothing. And so I would say like 75% of our followers are actively engaged followers and have become partners or clients, which is more, and we only have like a little bit over 200. So, which is great. And it's a tool if you use it that well, if you use it that way and not use it as like a fake bougie platform.
That might be the nugget of the episode right there. Cause I think everyone, if they hadn't known how many followers you had and they listened to this episode, they probably would have guessed 10,000, right? They'd be like, you're crushing it. You're famous, basically everything you put out and people just throw money at you. You're grinding and you're working and you have the endurance every day to do it. And I think that's the importance, is the entrepreneurial endurance, that of being redundant, of treating every person like it's their first time working with you. Cause it usually is.
Yeah.
Even though it's your 100th time working with a home buyer. So
yeah. And one of the things I learned is if you stay on top of who's following you, the algorithm will feed more of those types of people. So if you let just anybody follow you, or you follow just anybody,
interesting,
then you're going to attract just anybody. Like, I don't need somebody in France unless they're coming to the United States and moving here, then,
right.
you know,
right.
you know,
that's smart.
Yeah, because Reels is more international, is what I learned just by observing. And because I used to live in Europe, and so I thought maybe it was just like the connection there, but it's like certain new things on Instagram in particular will attract more international, where it's like, no, I'm using this as a specific tool. No, thank you. And so it actually generates more local business. I've been finding like closer to our home, actually, because I've been filtering out who follows and who I follow.
Oh, that's great. That's
a great little nugget I've not seen an educational video on.
Yeah.
That is deep social media algo nugget right there.
Novice. You gotta be a learner. You gotta be really intentional.
I love how you broke it down though, because it kind of makes sense when you're like, okay,
they
want to give you more of what you're looking for. It's locally based. You'll see recommendations when you're within proximity, certain proximity.
Put your location on everything. So if you're serving somewhere, if you're sharing a story, put that location, because it's going to mark it out to the people in that area.
Yep. Great call.
Yeah. You know that, but they don't. So.
Hey, exactly. I'm just preaching to them. Any other books or podcasts? Since it sounds like you guys are great consumers of information. Anything that's been impactful over the years?
There's two books right off that I thought about kind of at the beginning of our conversation here, and I haven't read both of them all the way through, but I would highly recommend them. Start by John Acuff, and Finish, his follow-up to that.
Nice.
If you don't have a kid, you can read that in an afternoon. Both of them, they're really quick reads. I think Entree Leadership's a good book. The Advantage by John Lincioni or Patrick Lincioni. I could send all of these to you.
Let's do it. Yeah.
And Be Our Guest by the Walt Disney Corporation. It's about customer service.
Oh, wow.
Who does it better than Disney?
Yeah.
I don't like Disney. I won't go there. But like they set the scene, and their customer service, if you've ever been, is just amazing. Yeah. And they have a breakdown of how they do that, and any business can use it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, include that one in the list, because I've heard that's an iconic one in terms of like the OG of, customer service.
Oh, and they have the compass, and it's amazing.
Yeah, they do well. I think they're going to be around a while.
Yeah. What else? Books. Our house is full of books.
Yeah, we have books everywhere.
The common thread I'm learning of some of the most thriving and successful entrepreneurs in this business, the ones that read, the ones that consume info, the ones that look outward as opposed to just staying within.
Yeah, readers are leaders. The Practice by Seth Godin. Don't get the Audible unless you have some crazy focus, because he reads it off like a list. But if you can read it and digest it, then that one's really great. It's all of his books that culminated into one.
Oh, wow. Because I was going to say anything by him is great, because I love, love him in general.
So if you've never read him, get The Practice. It's his latest book.
Because he's a marketing guy. So anyone that needs to learn to get in the mindset of marketing, to reframe, he's
and it's all about keep at it, keep doing it. And that's the whole book.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the hour. I want to be respectful of y'all's time. I know we got things to do. Anything else we didn't touch on? Anything burning? Did we not talk about GameStop, or what? Is there nothing we talked about you guys wanted to touch on?
I didn't make anything off of that, but yeah.
Me either.
Twice this year, it's like we should invest in oil, but we don't invest in like things, like just markets.
Just in the business. Best returns.
Right. Put it back in the business.
I will say, we're huge fans of you, of Mike, of your podcast. I think I've listened to every episode now, and of course, it's been great traveling around as much as I drive.
I appreciate that.
And we love the software.
Oh my God, that has been a game changer.
We were fans before we got it. And so, okay, we're gonna, as soon as we can afford it, man, we're going for it. And,
I'm not easily excitable, and I was the one who was saying no on it because I'm cheap.
Uh-huh.
And dude, it just changed everything. So
as a marketer, I think of stuff in your hands where I'm like, okay, you can create hours and hours of content and marketing pieces on this, and just reasons to get coffee. Like you're dangerous.
Yeah. So my advice to anybody starting and to anybody who's been in the game and has kind of hit a rut, because I don't care like how long somebody's been in a business, if you're going to hit like ebbs and flows. So, and it's constantly changing. And I think it might be harder for people who have been in it. Yeah. But you have to do things that are going to scare you and push you, because that's how you're going to grow. Like you have to start and restart to stay in the game, and don't make yourself, don't retire yourself accidentally.
There you go. Well said.
Because we see a lot of that. And I think that was kind of our advantage with COVID, because it was who's willing to work and be different and stand out, and who's going to just stop working. And so I think that's one of the reasons, we stood out, because I kept hearing it. So stand up.
Love it. You'll be off to the races this spring and summer.
Oh.
With maybe some sense of normalcy and face-to-face interaction.
I miss that.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, yeah, we'll be coming out we went to the conference in North Carolina year before last. So, if things are happening again, we'll be out your way at some point.
Hopefully it's at Duke. I would love to go there.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for this. This was great.
Hey, we appreciate it.
Shoot me those links. I'll get them in the description. I'll link to everything. So if anyone's curious of these books, podcasts, your social accounts, website, all that good stuff.
What was that book y'all read about being a badass?
Oh, You Are a Badass.
You Are a Badass.
And if you you're going to love the Audible, because the writer narrated it and it was so entertaining, and just the stories. It's just such an empowering book. My daughter read it and has changed her life already. And so
that's awesome.
All right.
We have another one to add to the list then.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Thanks a bunch, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. And have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
All right. See ya.